friends. Welcome to Sky House Herbs Podcast. I'm Ashley Ellenboss, a clinical herbalist, and in this space, I share my knowledge and experience with plant medicine to help you on your own journey of healing and transformation. Join me in exploring the ancient wisdom of plant spirit medicine and how it can be used to heal the body, mind, and spirit. We'll talk to experts in the field and share stories from people who've been transformed by powerful plant allies. New episodes are released each Monday, so please subscribe. And now, let's explore this mystical world of plant medicine together. Friends, this is Ashley. Welcome in. Today, I'm going to be talking about leadership, Leo, and oak. I got a facial today, so my skin looks like it's like very glowy and very red. So there you are. Gotta love facials, but sometimes they leave a mark. So any case, let's get into today's topic because it is Leo season. And for those of you who follow my channel and also my husband's Nightlight Astrology, there's a lot of good astrology happening this month in the sign of Leo, as the sun is in the sign of Leo. So I want to talk about that a little bit as it relates to the topics of leadership and also the medicine of oak, which is a very sacred tree to me personally and to many cultures around the world. Before I jump into it, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. Please like this video if you find it helpful. When you subscribe, you can also click on notifications, and that will allow you to see when my new videos come up. So thank you for that. You can also follow my husband over at Nightlight Astrology. So Leo season, this is the season of fixed fire. It's, kind of the pinnacle. We've passed the summer equinox or the summer solstice where the longest day of the year has happened. So that is in the sign of Cancer. So we're kind of like in sort of the apex of the summer season. And as a fixed fire sign, Leo is all about how do we maintain warmth? How do we maintain integrity? How do we maintain loyalty? How do we maintain love? All of these really fiery qualities. And as my husband and I and our family just got back from the Good Medicine Confluence in Colorado, hosted by Plant Healer Magazine and the good folks at Plant Healer. And it was a really intense time. And before I left on that trip, I used the Hedge Oracle spread, which is a wonderful tarot deck that was created by the founders of the Confluence, Jesse Wolf Hardin and Kiva Rose Hardin. And this is the book that goes along with the deck. So before we left, I did a spread, and one of the cards that came up was the stag. And the stag, it was so interesting because after I pulled that card, there were about 4 different times during my trip to San Francisco in a taxi cab. There was a literal stag head in the taxi cab, like a statue on top of his dashboard. Then the stag showed up in the hotel where we were staying. The stag showed up in a place where we had dinner. The stag showed up in the back of a car, like a literal stag head mounted, like from a hunt, I guess. So that sign kept showing up, and it was all, the card in the deck was about leadership and about the quest for knowledge. So this idea, this Leo as a leader is, I think, a really good meditative topic for us this month to think about and to reflect upon how we are leaders in our community, how we lead ourselves as well. And this was something that my friend Holly, who was at the conference or confluence with me, she said she picked up from a class that was taught by Amy Braham, she lives in California now, but I actually went to college with her at UNCA Asheville, or UNC Asheville. And she was talking about how one of the things that we often do to ourselves that's really damaging for our connection to ourselves and can create more trauma in our lives is when we don't stand up for ourselves and our own needs. And we can do that in very subtle ways by not keeping promises to ourselves. Like if we say, once I finish work, then I'm going to go for a walk, and then you don't go for a walk. Or once I finish this big project, I'm going to treat myself to a day off, and you don't take the day off. And it's one thing to not keep promises to other people. That's certainly something that we need to look at. But when we're not keeping promises to ourselves, that creates strain in ourselves and in our hearts, and it weakens our connection to our soul, and it creates maybe you could think of it as like a discord, a discordant vibration between our truest self and how we're acting in the world. So the Leo season, I think this is a really good time right now. And if you're listening to this at another time, it's a good thing to do anytime, but to really check in with yourself and say, am I in accordance? Am I acting, speaking, and living in accordance with my highest principles, with my highest values? Am I standing up and am I in a leadership role within myself? Am I leading myself as I would lead a country? Not that we get that opportunity, all of us, but if we can't with integrity lead ourselves, it is really hard to lead others. And it doesn't mean, all leaders can make bad decisions, right? Or we might have to change our decisions depending on changes in circumstances. That's totally normal and understandable. But if we have ethical principles and values that we are disloyal to, that is damaging to the trust that we need to build with ourselves and the trust that we build with others. So this season, how do we do that? How do we really take seriously the role of self-leadership and the role of staying true to our values? So the topics of loyalty, love, and pride, I think pride is like taking pride in ourselves. That's something that we think of when we think of the lion. Literally the group of lions is called a pride. So we can take in Leo season, we can take pride in ourselves and our accomplishments, the knowledge, the wisdom we've gained from walking a good path and living a good life. And we can also check in with ourselves and say, where am I being prideful in a way that actually is weakening my relationship with God or with a higher power or with my community? Where is pride displaced? Where am I placing pride where it doesn't belong? And that is something that can be very helpful when we're trying to figure out how do I rightly live in a place of leadership and solid like solidarity within, and an integrity, I think is a good word, within ourselves. So when I think of Leos, my husband has some good Leo in his chart. My daughter, Summer, she's a Leo. Her birthday's coming up at the end of this week. And my brother's a Leo. My father's a Virgo, but he has a Leo. I think he's Leo rising or Leo moon. So I have a lot of Leos in my life. And the best thing that I love about Leos is their steady warmth and their steady presence and their loyalty to warmth and to connection when they're in a healthy place, right? I've also seen Leos get really headstrong and really stubborn, especially, my 4-year-old. When she gets mad, it's like a tempest storm of madness and big feelings, and she can get really stuck in that fixed fire, can get really stuck sometimes, when they're only relying on the small self to get them through. But when Leos are at their best, they're very gregarious, they're giving, they're warm, they're open, they're quiet leaders. They can lead through example. And a lot of times in my life, when things have been kind of chaotic, there's something about the steady fire of a Leo when they're in their solid place and they're in a place of goodness, where you say, I want to follow that person, or like, I trust that person is walking the right path. In this moment, I'm going to follow them. And that doesn't mean forever, but it might mean in a moment where you need someone to step forward. That Leo energy can really fill those shoes very, very well. I was thinking too that when we think about pride, the pride of a good leader is not centered in themselves, but in their brave love of humanity and their brave embodiment of goodness. And so I was imagining both the stag and the lion they've got a crown about them. So the stag has these big antlers, and the lion has this huge mane that wraps around and crowns its face. And so symbolically, that represents spiritual authority or spiritual energy. It's the energy of the upper chakras. It's the higher self that they are able to draw into the and anchor into their minds and into their voices and into the way they project their energy into the world. And this spiritual crown can show us ways that we can also find our own spiritual authority and leadership. We can think about if you can imagine maybe someone in your life who has been a very positive spiritual authority figure or a leader in maybe a spiritual community, or it could even be a yoga teacher or just someone who embodies a steadiness about them and a leadership, that positive leadership quality. One of the things that they're able to do is they're able to maintain a bird's eye view of life, right? They're able to be from that high antler, that high mane position, view the world and keep their eyes on the bigger picture and what is at stake, and how their actions and words and what they do in the world will have an impact. And so that from that vantage point, one of the opportunities we have this season is to, from that higher view, really think about, what are we here doing? What is our purpose in this lifetime? And in yoga they talk about it as dharma, like the essential nature, the essential gift of each individual soul. And it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't mean like, when I say like your own spiritual purpose, it doesn't have to be something so specific that it feels like it's too much. Like, you don't have to champion a cause to the very end. But it's something that Rukmini Walker, one of my spiritual teachers, taught me is, we just have to do our own small part in the bigger. It's like we have to carry the torch for a little while, and that might only be for a part of our lives. Like for right now in my life, my spiritual torch is as a mother and a wife. Like my I used to be a community leader, as a yoga studio owner and teaching large yoga teacher trainings and doing things like that. And that phase. That was my purpose during that phase. And now my purpose has changed. Now my purpose is to hold the torch of being a good role model for my girls, and being a good wife for my husband, and being a good teacher online in the capacity that I'm able to. But it's different. And I foresee, as I move into my 50s, I'm in my mid 40s now, but as I age, there'll be a different role and a different purpose that I'll have to figure out what that is, and champion for that and hold that torch really firmly. But whatever phase of life you're in, there should be some torch that you're holding. There should be some light or some cause that you're fighting for, and you're fighting the good fight, and doing it in the best way, and in the way that is not going to burn you out, right? That is the hard thing in this culture, is figuring out ways to carry the torch without burning your own hand. So as we think about this, one of the plant teachers that came to mind was oak. And oak is an amazing tree. It's beloved by the Druids, beloved in many cultures. My ancestors from Lithuania, my grandfather was Lithuanian. And I remember when I spoke with him before he passed several years ago, he talked about when he visited Lithuania that the oak trees were considered gods, like they were God. And so the highways were built around them, much like in throughout Europe, hawthorn trees or elk or elder trees were considered to be those trees of the other world and of fairies. And in Lithuania, the oak tree was the most sacred tree. And so highways were built around it. And he said that there are many sacred oaks in Lithuania that he visited when he went back, where there are like ribbons tied and garlands placed, and beautiful shimmering glass pieces decorating these huge, several 100-year oak trees. And people gather and they pray and they give blessings and they celebrate the oak. And that still happens today. So this is not just something of the old world. This is still something that's being practiced in many cultures throughout the world. And the reason that they loved the oak so much is that the oak represented not only the stability of God and God's love, but also of the qualities of strength and endurance and what endures. And that's part of what I think the gift of this season is really paying attention to what endures, what lasts, what can we, what kind of hook can we hang our proverbial coat on, um, something that we know will be consistent and steady throughout our lifetime. The oak was also considered to be the king of all trees by the Druids, and often kings and the leaders of that time would wear oak crowns. And there's even Kiva mentions in the book about the Hedge Guild Oracle book, in the chapter on the stag. She talks about one of her favorite pins, her Celtic pins, is a stag head surrounded by oak leaves. And so the image of the oak and the stag, we find those together because they both, it's like leadership that lasts. And I feel like that's really what Leo at its best is. Now, in terms of the medicine of the oak, not only is it something that we can just enjoy from afar. I remember when we were looking for houses, I was really afraid we wouldn't find the right home. And so I prayed and I meditated, and I saw this image. I was in a tent and I looked outside and there was a big oak tree. And I said to the oak, I said, how will I know that I found the right home? And the oak tree said, because you will see me there. And I remember that our house in Bowie, Maryland, where we lived for many years, one of the things, it had like a 200-year-old oak tree in the front yard. It was so majestic and beautiful, and it had a dragonfly, like a kind of a iron and glass iron dragonfly on it. And that became a very powerful symbol in our family, the oak and the dragonfly. So when we were looking for houses in the wintertime in Minnesota, everything was covered with snow. And we were looking and looking, and all of a sudden, a dried oak leaf flew through the air and landed on the top of the snow. And I go, okay, this is the house. And it happened. It all came together quite smoothly. And this is the house we're living in now. And that oak tree is right. I'm looking out the window at it right now. So the symbol of the oak as a messenger of stability, of things that last, things that persist. And so, I whenever I see oaks, I always can take a deep breath and know, like, okay, I'm surrounded by goodness. I'm surrounded um, by benevolent spirits. At least that's the way that I perceive the oak. Now, in terms of the medicine of the oak, oaks are very high in tannins. They have a very hard wood, so they're great for building. A lot of the old Tudor houses throughout the colonies and in Europe were made with oak. And because they're so high in tannins, they preserve very well, and their bark was often used to tan hides like leather, and to make clothing and to make furniture, and um, to make upholstery. So they're really good at preserving things. And one of the tricks that I learned when I was learning how to pickle things was that when you're pickling cucumbers, or when you're pickling anything, if you take an oak leaf and put it in the jar of vinegar and whatever spices you've used for your pickling, it will keep them crispy. It'll keep whatever you're pickling crispy. So if you want crispy pickles, or crispy pickled onions, or crispy pickled beets, throw in an oak leaf. It has to be a green one. It can't be dried, unfortunately. But if you can throw a green oak leaf in, it will keep it crispy. It will preserve the hardness of what lasts in whatever it is you're fermenting or pickling, which I thought was really nice. So the medicine of oak is something that firms us up, has us stand upright, teaches us about strength and endurance, and our ability to persevere through hardship and through time. So I hope this meditation has been, and this topic has been helpful for you. And as we are moving through the rest of this summer season, to think about, where are your loyalties? How are you loyal to yourself? How do are you keeping promises to yourself? And if you haven't been, start today. Make a promise to yourself, something that is good, and do it and follow through and show yourself that you are loyal to your own innermost highest being. Show yourself that you are trustworthy not only to others but to yourself, and give yourself the gift of that higher crown, the gift of the stag, the gift of the lion, and make decisions from the higher mind for the good of all. And maybe you have to put your pride down a notch in areas where maybe you've made a mistake, to admit fault, to say you're sorry in certain situations, and to take that, to maybe make sure that your pride is well placed. And from there, natural leadership qualities will start to come up, and people will follow you and trust you, and will maintain uh, their admiration of you if you're doing that work inside. So thank you all. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please share this video if you think it would be helpful for others. And as always, have a great day. Take good care of yourself, and I'll see y'all again soon.